Sounds like a familiar title of a song. Actually, I don't know. Maybe it's a cover. There we go. 21 minutes after 11 o'clock. And interesting topic. It's always an interesting topic with John Cowan. Fascinating conversations with a guy who has been around a few winters. To be fair, a bit of a sage, and picked up some wisdom along the way, or maybe he's just lived long enough to seem wiser than the rest of us. Today, looking at the downside of a prolonged life. John Cowan, kia ora, good morning. Thanks for your time today.
Good morning. Yes, hark at Father Time here. Of course, there's the downsides of aches and pains and wrinkles and things, but I want to actually talk about another downside, an unintended downside, I think, of the prolongation of life.
Yep.
When I was born back in 1956, and I'll save you the maths, that means I'll be turning 68 later this year.
Congratulations.
If you ask a statistician when I would most likely die, his answer would have been that I should have died earlier this year.
Okay.
You see, back when I was born, the life expectancy for a man was 67.2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to say that circumstances and good planning and everything like this and eating fiber and whatever else has meant that life expectancy has increased. In fact, now it's more than 80 years for a New Zealand male.
And if it keeps going at this rate, you'll never die, right? It's just...
Yeah, if it keeps on increasing at this rate. Actually, and when I use the online calculators, I can expect, on average, another 15 to 20 years of life, which is relatively good news, I think.
It is good news, except for the fact that, I mean, as you mentioned in the introduction, it'd be good news if you were still young, but of course, you now have more years of your body's fallen apart to look forward to, perhaps. But hey, immortality's not all it's cracked up to be, John.
Anyway, given the choice, I'd probably go for this idea of having another couple of decades.
Yeah.
But my generation have created a huge problem. We're not conveniently dying off and getting out of the way of a younger generation. I mean, it's going to provide all sorts of problems like feeding us and housing us, but there's also the problem that we have gridlocked many of the top slots in businesses and organizations.
Okay.
I reckon that policy of us clinging too long to these leadership roles has killed lots of clubs and businesses and churches and political parties and service clubs, the Grey Brigade, the geriatric generals, not encouraging the next level of leadership, but rather making an old boys club or an old woman's club, assisting with stale culture and stale ideas and being not just resistant, but even antagonistic to the ideas of younger people. And I think that this is not a good thing.
Of course,
I'm not saying necessarily we're doing a bad job of our role. In fact, one of the things is, well, I'd hand over if there's people with a bit of competence to do it. And if they knew what I knew, they'd know how to run things. But
honestly, there's a couple of things there. There has to be an alternative to, you don't have to pop your proverbial clogs in order to have good succession planning. There is, of course, an opportunity to say, yes, I'm going to be old and enjoy my twilight years, but not necessarily still in control and still running everything, right?
That's right. Mortality used to be a good way of enforcing transition. And
grace and humility may try and take its place, but not if I can help it, says some.
That's exactly the line I'm going to get onto, the idea of grace and humility. And because I think we can make a much better world if we just approach this whole thing a little bit better.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm not necessarily saying stop working if you're enjoying working. What I'm saying is that there might well be a role for not stepping down, but stepping to the side and stepping back a little bit.
Yeah.
Not so that you can control the new layer of leadership, but helping them, to give them being slightly behind them gives a great opportunity to pat them on the back and to actually applaud them. You see, this change is going to happen anyway. We may have delayed it, but the baby boomers are sliding off the perch.
Yeah.
We are, we are sort of being dislodged from our corner offices and our private car parks and
Shuffling off a
shuffling
mortal
off
coil
into,
and all that stuff.
not off the mortal coil yet, but off to these big retirement villages
Oh,
that I
yes.
sometimes disrespectfully call pre-crematoria.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I think that you know, we're having to hand over to these bright young things that can't even do sums and pounds, shillings and pence. Good heavens, how do they expect to run the organisation?
you brought up a good point, though, because some of the reluctance of the Grey Brigade to hand over is because of the incompetence of the following generation. Although that's probably the fault of the Grey Brigade, that if you don't have a decent succession plan, if you haven't been mentoring and encouraging and instructing the next generation to be the leaders that you want them to be, although possibly with a little bit more grace and humility than that, then maybe it's the fault of the Grey Brigade that there aren't the leadership coming through. Maybe they're in the way.
Could well be. You see, there are bright and clever and capable people in the younger generation, just like, and you see, we had opportunities to do it when
Yeah.
we were younger. And so we were able to move up into these roles. And so what do these young people do? They're setting up alternative structures.
Mhm.
They're bypassing conventional clubs and churches and organizations and things, often setting up structures and cultural ensemble online,
Yeah.
bypassing us so that we don't have an opportunity to have any influence or encouragement and everything. So I can remember years ago, wonder how long I'll be able to say that. I can remember. Anyway, but I used to be a thing called a multimedia producer.
Yeah.
It was a thing that was a thing back in the 70s and 80s, big screens,
All-
multiple projectors.
All done with a slide projector and a bed sheet, right?
Up to 18 slide projectors.
Oh my goodness!
You know, it was it was a thing that had its day before video projectors and such like. But I also dabbled in audio recording and radio and TV and script writing and publications and things. So I was a multimedia producer, and people would say, "What's your favorite medium?" And I would reply, "People."
Mm-hmm.
And could I urge you to, if you're getting longer in the tooth or losing your teeth like me, to actually consider, you know, you may not be able to master many of the modern media techniques of today, but
Mhm.
maybe you can put your ideas into the heads and hearts of these young people to encourage them, and also to actually listen to their ideas and go, "That's a good way. That's a good way of doing it."
Yeah.
And so I've got 3 points I'd like to encourage people of my ilk and era. The first is relish change.
Mhm.
It's going to happen anyway, so why not be a cheerleader and encourage the change makers, helping them to do it well?
Yeah.
And some of this new stuff might be really good. We thought we had good stuff coming through that was better than the old generation before us. And some of these young people, we may not recognize it at the start, but it could be really, really good. So why not just encourage them?
Yeah.
The other thing is live your wisdom. You've got decades of good stuff composting down in your heart. And if you've discovered some of the secrets of living well, then live well. An older person with a smile is going to be far more potent and have more influence than a grumpy old person with a PowerPoint presentation. So yeah, be one of those old people.
Mhm.
And don't cling to your positions and power and privilege. They're such hard work anyway.
Mm.
And we could be getting in the way of someone who could do it better than us. So the really fun part is being able to say, look at them go.
Yeah.
Look how well they're doing. And to take some pride in the fact that you encouraged them to do it, or at least you got out of the way.
Yeah.
And that could be the best thing you ever did, was possibly getting out of the way of someone who could do something better.
Sounds like a good plan indeed. But yeah, easier said than done. Old wolves don't retire well.
No.
And particularly with the church circles, perhaps.
This will be a real uncomfortable challenge for some people.
Exactly. John, thank you for bringing your challenge and your wisdom and discernment. I'd love to see that slideshow one of these days, but yeah.
Grumpy old man slideshow. I've got lots of them.
Exactly. Hey, thanks for your wisdom. Thanks for joining us today.
Cheers, Andrew. Bye.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.